It's hard to believe, but two important Nintendo franchises premiered in the West in August 1987. First, fans were treated to the original Metroid, and then on August 22nd, they were introduced to The Legend of Zelda. According to most sources, that is. And like Metroid, it too arrived a year earlier in Japan as a Famicom Disk System game. It was followed up by Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons, A Link to the Past and Four Swords, The Wind Waker, Four Swords Adventures, The Minish Cap, Twilight Princess, Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks, Skyward Sword, A Link Between Worlds, Triforce Heroes, and this year's phenomenal hit, Breath of the Wild. We know the origins and we know the games now. What else is there to say? Instead of going into great detail on every title, I thought it would be more interesting to log the evolution of the series. This is the most important year Zelda has seen since the debut after all. I of course am referring to Breath of the Wild, which both expanded the horizon of the franchise while simultaneously dialing back to its roots. That said, let's start at the beginning. So The Legend of Zelda at its core is an action-adventure game. You begin with a sword and a goal: rescue Princess Zelda. That's it. There was a map, but it didn't tell you where to go, just where you've been. Save for a few temples, the world was your oyster and the only thing stopping you was difficulty. Some areas had tougher monsters, it was possible to challenge these areas early on, but a wise player would learn not to. That's what made the game such a phenomenon. This open-ended gameplay and lack of linearity was a huge evolution of video games in 1987. Does it still hold up? Oh sure, but like most NES games, it's hard as hell, and perhaps the obtrusive nature of the overworld can be frustrating to gamers used to icon guides now. Archaic, yes, but still classic. The game that is probably the hardest to retread is the sequel, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. Like most number 2s at the time, it tried to drastically change the formula of the original. There was a world map, yes, but most of the game was 2D and resembled Metroid more than the game before it, plus it added RPG elements like experience points and towns. If you think the first game is hard, try this one. I've tried to get into this one many times, but I just can't muster the urge, other than a sense of historical curiosity. Thankfully, this weird experimentation didn't continue with the third game. A Link to the Past is still, I feel, the perfect Zelda game and my favorite. The integrated story, power of the Super Nintendo 16-bit graphics, music, and gameplay changes made everything about the original better. It even kept in a bit of non-linearity when it came to dungeons. Everything about the game is so intensely mesmerizing. I love it to death, but I've drooled over A Link to the Past before in so many articles and videos. You know it's good, and if not, please go back and play it any way you can. The next big break is seen by many as the best, Ocarina of Time. It took the concept and applied it into 3D, which worked well for the most part. I don't think it's a bad game unlike Zelda 2, but I think it's flawed more than what people give it credit for, and not just graphically either. You could bag on any old 3D game for that. No, the gameplay is what I find weak. The controls just don't feel right to me. But the 3DS port, remaster, or whatever you want to call it, is the best way to play the game now. Still a bit clunky, but better. Pretty decent 3D too. Yet with this step into 3D, I think we found Zelda stuck in a rut for quite a long time. Everything up to 2011's Skyward Sword follows the same formula set forth by Ocarina of Time. You're a fated hero who must go through an agonizing line of tutorials to get your sword and shield before you can venture off finding magical items and dungeons, all to stop evil, save Princess Zelda, and Hyrule. Yeah, their settings are different, like the Wind Waker's seafaring world and the Four Swords sub-series added multiplayer and was more action-oriented, but again, same basic gist. Not that these games weren't good, it's just that the sense of progression stopped. 2013's A Link Between Worlds altered things a bit. Yeah, it's the same world more or less, and yeah, you're still going into dungeons to eventually save Zelda in Hyrule, but the rental shop was a neat new step in how you could progress in some sort of non-linear fashion, just like the older games. I'm not saying it revitalized the series, far from it, but it was a step. And a step which would then become the basis for Breath of the Wild, which is pretty close to unseating A Link to the Past as my favorite game in the series. But nostalgia is a powerful thing, and nothing will beat my love of the Super Nintendo. And that's also why I understand why some see Ocarina as the best. Overall, hey, every Zelda game is pretty good. I didn't set out to discuss every game and every minute change to this series since the debut. This was more of a broad stretch across them all, and like A Link to the Past, I've written and discussed Breath of the Wild a lot already, and this is still the first year, so let's end things off on this. While Breath of the Wild would be great to see again in some form, I think it would be more appropriate to end the series here on a high note. Sort of like coming full circle. Of course Nintendo won't, because fans would cut their wrists on Twitter, but hey, it'd be a hell of a send-off. And with that, I want to wish The Legend of Zelda a very happy 30th anniversary. Did you know that was a ReActionExaminer video? If you liked it, you should subscribe to me to keep up with everything that I'm doing. Also, if you have some other interests, like sex for example, check out Tomups, which is a comedy sex podcast thing wherein my best friend and I check out the weird and abnormal and the erotic. And of course you should support me on Patreon because hey, I want to make the channel better and I want your help to do so. Plus, if you want to check out my writing, check out Game Jerk, where I have archives and new stuff for all projects, okay? You can find all the stuff and more in the description with the links below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.